Welcome to the first session of Straight Talk with Thane. My name is Stephen Thane. I serve in the Idaho State Legislature. And you know, today everybody's mind is on the economy. And I think it's time for some straight talk on some economic principles. So today we're going to talk about jobs, specifically the difference between a government job and a private sector job.
Now, private sector jobs are quite special. They create their own funding. This is a special thing about private sector jobs. They either produce a product to sell, like a car or food or electronics or housing or clothes that someone else wants to buy. Private sector jobs are self-funding in another way. They provide a service. Like a plumber or a custom farmer, a barber, or someone who works on your lawn. And these private sector jobs are funded through sales and through the work that they do. They create their own wealth. They require no government subsidies, meaning other taxpayers' taxes. And consumers voluntarily pay for the product or service. Public sector jobs, however, are very, very different. They are not self-funding. They create no wealth. In fact, they're a drain on wealth, and they interfere with the creation of wealth. They require a yearly tax subsidy, and taxpayers are forced to pay for the service that offered by government. So the difference is on January 1, you have, for a private sector job, you have a raw material and it goes into a factory, and on December 31st you have wealth produced that didn't exist prior to the work of the private sector, so you have a cornucopia of goods. On the other hand, a public sector job on January 1st, or a public sector agency, you have a pile of money at the beginning of the year. And at the end of the year, the agency's completely out of money and they're coming back for the legislature or Congress to fund them further. And I'd ask you, would you voluntarily pay for an IRS agent to perform an audit? Would you voluntarily pay for a social worker to come and look into your domestic affairs? Or would you pay for an employee of the EPA to come and chase mosquitoes or butterflies? Of course not. So let's look at this as a jobs comparison. Government jobs consume wealth, and therefore we can't have too many of them because they are consumptive in nature. They reduce the amount of wealth available. On the other hand, private sector jobs produce wealth, so we need more private sector jobs. If we look at the economy, and to get a better picture of this, and we look at what the foundation of the economy is, it's production. Nothing can be consumed, be it a hamburger or a 2x4 or a gallon of gasoline, until it's produced. And all of this production takes place in the private sector. So if we look at the United States as one big economy, the income comes from the private sector, whereas government is the expense. So if our income and expense are out of balance, it's pretty simple. You need to reduce your expenses and grow your income. There's lots, just to show you how serious this problem is, there's lots of government jobs. Today in America, there are nearly twice as many people working for government, 22.5 million, than in all of manufacturing, 11.5 million. There are more government jobs than in construction, farming, fishing, forestry, manufacturing, mining, and utilities combined. So what's the problem with the American economy? It's really very simple. There are too many government jobs, there's too much government spending, there's too much government consumption, and the private sector is too small. And government harms the private sector production and job creation in a couple of ways, because that's really where jobs are created, in the private sector. Government interferes first by high taxes that inhibit capital formation. So if the business or an individual doesn't have the money, then the business or the individual can't take that money and invest in more production. If through taxation the government takes the money and spends it, it doesn't invest in production. The second way is regulations that prohibit the use of capital, prohibit action, especially environmental regulations that restrict access to natural resources. For example, there might be a mineral that needs to be mined, but the government, through the EPA and other environmental regulations, will not let the private sector access that mineral. Therefore, hundreds and thousands of jobs annually are destroyed or not allowed to be created in the United States because of these regulations. So what's our solution? Because that's really what we're after. We're not complaining, we want a solution. We need to grow the private sector, especially production jobs in mining, forestry, manufacturing, energy production, agriculture, and fisheries. That's the foundation of an economy. And at the same time, we need to reduce government spending, which we'll talk about in a future session. That's Straight Talk with Thane. See you next time.